Hello, welcome, good evening. This is the War Room. This is day 26 of Russia's illegal incursion into the Ukraine. This is your one-stop shop, your daily updates, your hour-by-hour what's what in what could end up being in the history books someday as possibly World War III. It's a lot of stuff going on, and it's a lot of geopolitical BS. And surprisingly, we started on time today because I got home and I rushed into doing the show prep, and I see the chat actually showed up early today. Like, Ellie Mae Hatfield is here early for once. Good evening to you, and Al, and Shady Hill. So I suspect we're going to see the numbers file in as usual. There are other chats going on concurrently, I have to admit. Yankee does a pre-show for, I think it's Never Enough Ammo, and then Never Enough Ammo does a show, which is usually, let's see, Monday is usually Guns and Geeks. So he's probably covering last night's episode of The Walking Dead, which I haven't watched since Kung Flu kicked off back in 2019. But I did read the comics, so I know how the story ends there. Once the show ends on AMC, I'll probably watch the rest of that and compare the differences, which there are many. Anyway, we have a semi-full panel. I have updated the scroller below again. I get an update every day now, so that is up to date. And I got the date right too, because I belly ached over how wrong I got it yesterday until about 10 minutes before the show was over. The background screen that you're looking at is all the military actions as of yesterday, updated for today. So, as you can see, they are pushing from east to west quite a bit now. I think I've had some of the battle maps before in previous episodes, and you may notice that the little explosions where ground fighting marks are, they have definitely pushed east, and they have a land bridge between Mariupol and Crimea now, and it's getting ugly. It's getting really ugly. Basically, what they're doing now is most analysts are looking at the Russians' military posturing as of the last 48 hours, and they're looking for, I forgot what the fancy term was, but essentially they know they can't win. So now they're digging in because they don't want to lose ashamedly. I guess that's a good way to put it. Regardless, the traditional battle plan has failed, clearly. And so what's ending up going on is the Putin administration is essentially going scorched earth. And if you've been listening to the shorter shows on Saturday and Sunday, you may have noticed that the content was, or the time of those shows was a little shorter because the weekend stories tend to be a lot of human interest that I throw out just to keep it, strict to the timeline. But essentially, Putin is running out of options, and he's getting more brash. Latest statistics is that since this conflict began back on February 24th, which is what, 27 days ago, he's fired 1,100 missiles into the country. Each one cost over $1 million US. That's a lot of money. He's not getting the desired effect of his campaign. So what you've probably been seeing and hearing, at least from me, is the targets have become less military and more atrocity. And that is typical Russians doing Russian things. For instance, if I were to take a step back into history, I would point out that this exact thing happened in Aleppo in Syria. It happened in Georgia and South Ossetia, It happened in Belarus. It happened, I think, for the Crimea too. So this is just Russians doing Russian things. We have some bizarre stories too. I don't have a timeline story for you, but I did hear several news articles about people in Poland pulling up in their personal vehicles and collecting refugee women who are not unpleasant to look at, apparently, convincing them that they will take them to safety, bringing them to hotels, and raping them. God help you if I was a police chief in Poland and I caught you, because I would chum for sharks with you, because I would have a tow along wood chipper, because these people are devastated, shocked, they are traumatized, and then you're going to turn around and exploit them via human trafficking and rape in the country that has been very hospitable and their resources are stretched thin. So now the Polish government is being very strict about who can show up at these border refugee camps, and they take photos and video. They grab all your information because they're not going to take any more chances. Is who getting funding from third-party sources? If you can clarify that, I'll try to answer your question, Ellis. But I'm not really sure what you mean yet. So if you type it in, I'll take a look. Let's see. So I tried to make an effort to get more pictures as of between yesterday and today. My timeline actually does start 10 minutes after midnight for me, so that's a good thing. I haven't pulled in my panel yet because I want to give you ample time to specify your question. But I can't think of Russia getting funding from anyone other than China and India at this point. So the Russians sold 3 million barrels of oil to India a couple days ago, which, surprisingly enough, the social media fallout for that has bared no fruit. Whereas when Shell Oil tried to do the same thing about a week and a half ago, the media fallout was so bad that they reneged on the deal. India, on the other hand, is what you would consider an emerging power, and they're not backing out of the deal. They must have got one hell of a deal. So keep this in mind when you are talking about dealing with India. Who, if anyone, is winning this war? Okay, so if I were to answer that question, which I know is rhetorical, but the only people winning this war right now is Western media, not Russia. Western civilized media is winning this war because they can put anything they want out there and they will become a ratings juggernaut. So I think if anybody's winning it, them, because they're paid by sponsors who keep them on the air, and the sponsors get commercials. And if you're watching these stories of these atrocities, you can tell that that's the station you're watching, and they're obviously getting paid. Either way, I want to try to keep this one sort of reduced also. I know F and H. I'm gonna pull you in. Just relax. I was trying to answer a question before I pulled you guys in. Let's see. What was I gonna say? Oh, we're gonna try to run them a little shorter than usual because I know I keep you way too long and I've been a bit long-winded. So we're gonna try to get this as efficient as possible. Also, I'm gonna try to make an effort to do the weekday shows at 8:30 Central and then the weekend shows at 9 o'clock Central, just because there's less stories on the weekends. So that being said, let me go ahead and start pulling my panelists in because obviously they're getting a little bit antsy, wondering what the hell I'm doing here. So my first panelist, because my college student isn't here, is my tradesman from the New England area. So everyone put your hands together for Scottish Naya, who is now here. I didn't forget you. I wanted to get some things out of the way before I dragged you all in. So that's you. And then My last two, I'm not sure if he wants me to say where he's from. It's Missouri. Anyway, this is Mr. FNH, and then I believe Desert Deagleton is from Indiana. So there we go. Now I've got all four of my panelists in. So good evening to all of you.
Howdy.
Hi.
Yo.
Howdy ho. Let me try to settle
Thanks for having me.
this a little better.
No, I wasn't trying to rush you. I just didn't know if you knew we were there.
Oh yeah, yeah. I pulled you into the other room when I saw Scott in there, so I just wanted to make sure
Oh
that you
yeah,
all
you
were in
did
the
do
same
that.
place.
I forgot about that. Yeah.
We're trying to rush it. Better be careful with that comment, sir.
Oh yeah, rushing the Russians. Oh, gotta be careful with that.
Oh.
All right. So anyway, just for shits and giggles, what was it? Desert Diggleton sent me a picture earlier of things that he thought I would like. One of which was a Colt Python, which I do own. The other one was an RPK, which I'm fixing to buy. And then the third thing was a DR200 Daewoo, which that is definitely on my to-do list. So that was very well done. But I got the, let's see.
Someone may have told him to send that picture.
Oh yeah, he told me, fucker. So what ended up happening was I was like, what can I even compare that with? And I was like, well, I can take a picture of my Anaconda, my Python, and I don't know, my PU sniper, and make him go, oh fucker. But I didn't do it. I didn't have time. I came straight home. I went straight to show prep because I wanted to make sure I got everything right this time. So like for instance, the scroller, all the statistics are correct. The date is correct for once. I used a new backdrop for once. Like I usually change the text for the war room and the breaking news special thing. So like I'm trying to sort this out right meow. There we go. And then let me drag this over here slightly like this. There we go. All right, now we're good. So everything is actually where it needs to be for once. So we might be able to get through this pretty quickly. Right? What's that?
Is the ticker actually working right?
Yes. I got the date right. Well, I did the ticker right correctly. I just forgot to change the date, so whatever. Anyway, let's go ahead and try to blow through these as quickly as possible because I know there's concurrent shows and I know that I'm the tinier channel of all of these things. And I somehow lost a sub today. I don't know what the hell happened. Like, you get email notifications if you get one, but they never give you notifications if you lose one. I guess because they're going to be like, you're going to chase after them or something. Like, what the hell? Or if it's algorithm BS. Alright, so my first story for you today, it's kind of pic heavy. I got pictures for you now. So it's going to be this, and mind the border. I clearly haven't got it correctly. Anyway, 7:10 a.m. Ukrainian time, so it's 12:10 a.m. Central. So this is right before I went to bed. I went and caught this story and I threw it in the timeline. I got two stories from this time actually. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy has accused Russia of war crimes after an overnight siege of Mariupol resulted in Russian forces bombing an art school. Now, keep in mind, he's talking about an overnight siege of an art school in an empty building, unless they use it for refugees, but no calls of dead or wounded, so I think what they're doing now is they're just wiping out Mariupol. Yesterday,
they're highlighting the fact that they're targeting civilians.
That too, yeah. Yesterday, what it was, the statistic was 80% of Mariupol has been razed to the ground. 20% of the entire city physical infrastructure remains. So it's one giant pile of rubble. Mariupol has turned into the Stalingrad of this conflict. If anyone has seen anything in terms of videos of the siege of Stalingrad, you know exactly what I'm talking about. There are two very good movies illustrating this. They were both called Stalingrad. One was a Til Schweiger movie, and then the other one came 10 years later. They both have two vastly different endings, but the battlefield sequences and the town itself being laid to waste, those are both almost the same. Two different stories told 10 years apart. If you haven't seen either one, do yourself a favor and watch both. Because
they're solid movies.
Both of them are. The second one, the later of the movies, actually starts in Japan during an earthquake and a tsunami in like 2009. And one of the rescuers was a soldier or he was the son of a soldier who fought at the siege of Stalingrad. And what he does is there was this woman that's buried in the rubble of a collapsed building, and she asks him to tell her a story to keep her calm while they try to dig her out. And he tells the story of the 4 Russian soldiers that saved a Russian Jew in the siege of Stalingrad. They were all in love with her, but only one of them got her, so to speak. And then that event led to his birth. So it's a fantastic story. Enemy at the Gate sort of touches on the
I was
siege
gonna say that
warfare.
reminds me of that.
The thing is Enemy at the Gates doesn't really touch on Stalingrad completely. It touches on many
No.
battles.
No, I was gonna go with the whole love interest angle.
That was more of a story of a poor farmer / sniper landing a very educated Rachel Weisz.
Well, I was gonna go with the fact that there was a political commissar who was trying to get him killed.
Was he
was
trying
in
to
love
get
with
him?
the same woman?
Was he trying to get him killed, or was he? Yeah, he was at the end, wasn't he?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
he was.
But what he did at the very end is a sacrifice to show you where the sniper was. That was self-sacrifice, because he knew he couldn't get her. He knew he lost.
Everybody was oddly British in that movie.
Yes. Yeah, the accents were pretty terrible. Except Ron Perlman, but he always looks like a
Yeah.
shaved ape.
Or Ed Harris.
Tell you what, though,
Yeah, Ed Harris.
I wish I had Ron Perlman's chrome teeth in that movie.
I'm glad I'm not the only one. I've always wanted to have gold teeth, but they don't do that anymore. And I'm pretty disappointed by it.
Well, I've got
I
I've got one white gold crown, and I'm about to have a second one. And I jokingly told my orthodontic surgeon, I was like, "Yep, this is the beginning. Pretty soon, I'm going to be Jaws from the Bond movies."
No, I want Jaws. That's what I was gonna say.
Yeah, let's go for it. I mean, you never have to worry about tooth decay if you all have gold teeth, right?
Kind of gotta suck to eat an apple like that, though. You know.
I don't know. I mean, is it an apple or is it your girlfriend? I mean, your teeth are cold. No, they're not. They've been in my mouth all day. Silence, woman. The Khrushchev scene in Enemy at the Gates, that was pretty good because that was Bob Hoskins, and he was like, do you want to talk to Stalin, or do you want to save yourself the red tape? And he slams a Tokarev on the table and walks out of the room. The guy kills himself. Yeah, spoilers.
I want to say something is that that character of Khrushchev is exactly how I imagine Khrushchev.
Yeah, and
Like,
Bob
whenever
Hoskins knocked it out of the park.
Yeah, whenever I'm like hearing, whenever I listen to like a podcast or something and it's about Khrushchev, all I can imagine is Bob Hoskins the entire time.
Wait a minute. HVS is saying that Khrushchev was Ukrainian.
Mm-hmm.
Huh? Huh?
Uh-huh.
I learned a thing today.
know
Thank
that?
you, sir.
And Stalin was Georgian.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Great hair. Terrible mustache.
Crippled arm.
Crippled arm. Gimpy arm. I've got this really funny picture of Adolf Hitler and Joseph Stalin, and they're sitting side by side, and they're done up like chibi anime characters. And one of them's like, I love his mustache. And the other one's like, he has such great hair. It's so stupid. Maybe I'll share it tomorrow if I can remember to do it. Anyway, same time of the day, but it's 1 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And fuck me, man. Like, they actually mentioned this at 1:10 a.m. Like, why is Jen Psaki even awake at that hour? Oh, that's right, because gingers have no souls. Anyway, sorry. President Biden will stop in Poland during his visit to Europe this week amid urgent talks with NATO and European allies, the White House announced. Biden will keep his initial itinerary by traveling to Brussels, Belgium, before he heads to Warsaw, Poland on Friday. Now, if you weren't here yesterday, you heard me say this. If Biden goes to Poland, he gets some street cred. He really does. Because he didn't have to. And you obviously don't send active president to a battlefield. So you don't send him to Kyiv because that's just asking for trouble, right? So realistically, sending him to Poland, if he voluntarily goes, that's not terrible. Except if he goes, he better take his happy gimpy ass over to the border where the refugee camp is so he can see it directly. Otherwise, people like me and Hannity and Mark Levin and, I don't know, Laura Ingraham will push his shit in brutally for the fact that Vice President Kneepads did the same thing. She was supposed to go visit the border and see all these camps, and she didn't. She went to El Paso and then disappeared. And she hasn't been back since. So if I'm Biden and I'm his entourage and I go to Warsaw on Friday, I would say, take me to the refugee camp at the border. I need to see this for myself. And if he does, I'll give him street cred. I will give him street cred. But if he doesn't, then I have to ask, why did you even bother going? You didn't meet with Zelenskyy. You didn't go to the very thing that everyone keeps telling you you need to see. So, hopefully, I was pleasantly wrong last night about where he was going to go on his trip, and I will be pleasantly wrong again on Friday if he actually does go to the border crossing. And Russians, if you're listening, if one of your stupid missiles tend to veer off track and hit this place on Friday during his visit, I'm sure some people are going to be like, oh my god, that's a war crime and atrocity. But you have to also think that there are some people in this country who would go, well, it's shitty, but you kind of did the nation a favor. So take it for what you will. I had to present both sides of this. Me personally, as much as I don't like him, if he shows up there, I will give him credit for making the appearance. Now, he's not going to say anything useful. But if he does, you know, what's the saying? Even the sun shines on a dog's asshole once in a while. Yeah. I don't know exactly what that means, but it seems to fit this narrative. And like, oh wow, he actually got it right and showed up. All right, let's move on. Let's see. Poland has been directly impacted by the Ukraine-Russia war, having taken in over 2 million of Ukraine's 3 million refugees. Poland also houses U.S. troops. In Warsaw, Biden will meet with President Andrzej Duda to discuss discuss how the U.S. and its allies can do more to help the humanitarian and human rights crisis that Russia's unjustified and unprovoked war on Ukraine has created. Biden's Europe trip includes a summit on Thursday with NATO leaders who will speak to use their allied strength to bolster international defenses and send a message of deterrence to Russian President Vladimir Putin. Sorry, everyone is a Misha or a Vladimir or a Volodymyr or a Sasha. I mean, sorry. The summit will show NATO's, quote, support to Ukraine, but also our readiness to protect and defend all NATO allies. NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg, the guy I want to kick over and paint a giant yellow stripe up his backside, told CBS's Face the Nation on Sunday. Oh, sorry. That's what he was saying. He wants to protect and defend all NATO allies. My little comment on the side of this is, that's all it is to these people, isn't it? It's a show. They're going to make the appearance, say a few words, turn around, hop on their private jet or Air Force One. They're going to go back to their countries and go, oh, it's terrible. But hey, we made the appearance, right? Not quite. You made it to Poland. If you wanted to make the appearance, you would be live in Kyiv, standing side by side in solidarity and unity with Volodymyr Zelenskyy. But you won't do it, will you? Because you ain't got the balls. You just don't have the balls. And besides, even if you did, tactically, it is a stupid move. If you took all the world leaders of NATO and brought them to Kyiv, and the Russians found out about it, and they dropped one of those hypersonic missiles with a warhead with 500 kilotons of nuclear hell, that would wipe out the entire West in terms of leadership. So that's probably a bad idea. better off to send Zelenskyy to Poland instead to meet with the president, or knowing that Biden's going to be in Warsaw. Zelenskyy should like sneak out the night before and be there and stand face to face with him, going, "Now I'm in your face. Now you've got to deal with this."
Well, you know one thing.
Hmm.
The U.S. force leaders wouldn't get wiped out because they haven't shown up.
Yeah. Yeah. You said the quiet part out loud. Anyway.
Yes, I did.
All right, so the next couple of stories, they're very short. They're little one-liners and stuff. However, the fourth one, I brought you a video. So you're going to love this. So for my panel, when I get to that segment, what I'll do is I'll give you like a 30-second heads up, so that way you can mute yourself, hop onto the YouTube side to see the video if you want, because it's kind of important. You really need to see this. Anyway, I got 3 other stories first, so let me get to those first. 1:13 a.m. Central Time, so it's 8:13 a.m. Pwnery's alarm went off, and he slept right through it. But Boris Johnson did do a tweet early in the morning, and this is what it says. I spoke to President Zelenskyy this afternoon to set out how I will be working to advance Ukraine's interests at meetings of NATO and the G7 this week. The UK will continue to step up military, economic, and diplomatic support to help bring an end to this terrible conflict. You got to admit, the UK has been very active in this since it all began. And I think part of it, this is multifold for me. One, Boris Johnson's a halfie, just like his predecessor Winston Churchill. He's half American and half British. Two, he has a vested interest in this because it's a West versus communism situation. So he's closer to the conflict than, say, we are. 3, he looks like the lovable idiot in public, but he's actually a brilliant political mind. He's not stupid. So there's an expectation with people in the UK that voted this guy in, because he started off as a automotive journalist, and then he became the mayor of London, and now he's the prime minister of England. And he's very, very forthcoming and very forthright. And I think I need to pull in a 5th panelist. Give me just a minute. Let me pull him in here. And everybody say good evening to the Polish Hammer, who's been gone for quite a while. But he's here now. Anyway, that's Johnson's tweet. And when he usually says something like that, he's going to do something. So I'm actually kind of encouraged to see that. And about an hour later, this popped up. And this is from the Kyiv Independent. Russians steal 5 grain-carrying ships from Berdansk port. Alexander Staruk, governor of Zaporizhzhia's Oblast, said on March 21st, today, that the stolen ships were carrying tens of thousands of tons of grain. Eyewitnesses say the ships were stolen by Russian tugboats. Now, you've heard me criticize the Russians quite a bit, saying that they're rotten-toothed, barley-eating Slav garbage. This doesn't help their case. They stole 5 carriers of grain from the port. Are they starving? Are their troops getting hungry? Why else would you steal grain? I mean, okay, the Russian Federation is, I think, the #1 exporter of wheat in the world. Ukraine is number 5.
Unless the sanctions are really killing them and they're asking to look for another source of food.
Possibly.
Oh, you might want to bring in somebody else, too.
Oh,
China?
shit. No, the Mike strike.
China strike.
Everybody put your hands together for Mikhail, the Mike strike, night strike.
Nike striker.
Yeah. So he's fashionably. Actually, you know what? He didn't know if it was going to be 8:30 or 9. So you're dead on time for a 9 o'clock start. So good evening to you, sir.
Hey, good evening. I thought it was Mikhail Night Strikes.
It is Mikhail Nightstrikesky.
And I thought it was Mikhail Fraustin.
And you're obviously Marco Ramius.
I am Marco Ramius, a Lithuanian by birth.
Lithuania, yeah.
Yes.
I mean, you can just call me FN.
I'll
A
have to think.
Belgian.
I've got to give you. I've got to figure out a Slav name for you.
Belgi.
No.
Belgi Bartokumus.
You know, I have to ask about that grain.
Yeah, go ahead.
It's not barley. Are you sure? Are you sure
It's not
really
barley.
helping the case? It's not barley.
Gotta be wheat.
It's got to be wheat, and it's probably got to be like.
You know,
Russian. So,
Well, Ukraine's number
Actually,
5, Russia's number 1 for wheat exports.
no, Sean.
Hmm?
Why does Russia need more wheat?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe they want to make
This
a lot
isn't
of
the
beer.
first time. Here's the thing, though. This isn't the first time they've done it. They did it to the Holodomor in Ukraine. So, I mean, unless they're dying for people's food, unless the government's doing that.
Now, if I could personally inquire about the price, I'm actually considering a bulk purchase.
Of barley?
Yeah. For what,
Just kidding,
Russia?
not really. I don't need a frigate of grain. Are you serious?
No, but like think about it, nice trick,
I can
or
use a
Sean.
frigate of gasoline these days.
No, what's
No.
the,
Where are
what's
you
the
going to
root?
store it at, dude?
No, but what's
Get
the
back
root
to the
cause?
EMT.
Wouldn't
What's
you
the
like
root
to know,
cause?
Mr. FNH? Wouldn't you like to know?
You'll be around Missouri, I'll tell you that. Fuck.
Yeah.
No, but seriously, guys, what's the root cause to make Russia want to steal and go after people's grain?
Starving
they
wanna
out.
can't
starve
feed
them
themselves.
Starving out the population. That's all I can think
That
of.
or their country is actually starving.
Yeah, it's one or the other.
I was going
It's one or
to
the
say
other,
think of
really.
like Dr. Evil. Probably both, actually.
100
Yeah, think of
billion
Dr. Evil.
tons of barley. I don't
The
know.
fact that you didn't see any Russian, they just say they were Russian tugboats. You know, normally when Russians take things, when the military appropriates, normally they have backup, and you didn't see that there.
So I have to ask, was this a Russian tug job?
Ooh.
Oh,
It was
jeez.
definitely a Russian rub job.
I mean,
Sean,
we
she-
look. I'm
tell you
I'm
what, she
pulling.
ain't
I'm
telling.
channeling an inner Greg Gutfeld here. Was it a rub and tug? A Russian tug? I don't know.
No,
Come on.
There's-
Sean. It was more like a Robin tug.
So HVS is saying that wheat futures had spiked on that, and Egypt is panic buying. No, look, he keeps an eye on commodities. So when he says something like that, obviously he's got his finger on the pulse of that. But I mean, in all honesty, it's like Egypt can just say, look, we'll just raise the price of our cotton exports to sort of make up the difference. Because one of Egypt's biggest exports is cotton, grown in the Giza region of Egypt. So they could panic, but I mean, they have other industries to sort of bolster that in a way.
Yeah, well, the rumors coming out of Russia right now are some of the oligarchs are looking to replace Putin.
Yeah, but they don't have the military strength to do so.
No, they don't. That's the wrong.
Not unless you're a high military general who can just freaking pull out a handgun and just pop his ass.
That's the
military
thing.
generals
He's got
Russian
the two.
oligarchs have one thing in common.
Yeah,
Wait, say
he's
that
got
word
two.
again, because you
He's
always
lost
get it
like
wrong, and I
50
love to hear
last
it.
week.
Oligarchs?
Oligarch.
Oligarch.
No, but theoretically, could a Russian person of some sort of this hierarchy just do that? To say, you know what, I'm done with Putin.
No.
We're done with tyranny.
No.
They wanted to get shot, sure.
No, the problem is those two generals who meet with him in the Kremlin or the Duma, whichever one, those two that you see in the photo ops all the time. First of all, they pass through like 5 or 6 checkpoints before they even get to sit at the table with them. At the table, they're 30 feet away from each other, and they're both disarmed. That's the problem. What they would better
smuggle
off be
poison?
doing... No, what they would better off be doing is trying to do trying to do a 4-4-40 across that table and just snap his neck. He's 70 years old. It can't be stronger than a carrot.
Or there's another option: just run up and strangle the guy.
That's what I'm saying. Snap his neck like a carrot.
Honestly, I feel like if half the propaganda is true, that guy could fucking, like,
He can
he'd
throw
fuck a
hands.
bear.
That guy can throw chingazos for sure. I mean, he was
Dude, he could fucking snap by.
He was a judo champion for like 40 years.
Several bears after.
That's why there's two of them.
Scary.
That's why you get two generals. One of them puts him in like a half Nelson, the other one snaps his neck.
Or
They've
I don't
got
see it.
Doctor
I don't see
Evil. They've got Doctor Evil for their dictator, and for us, we've got what's that fucking Mr. Rogers, but like all fucking
Yeah, the touchy feely.
geriatric version.
So HVS is saying that the world just suffered a 40% loss of grain supply, but you can't make that up selling My Pillow Egyptian cotton sheets. This is true. There's going to be a bit of a sore spot. Now, I'm not one to give people market advice too often, even though I am a day trader. However, what I can tell you in terms of things that actually matter at your dinner table, if you live in a state that has a Kroger grocery store and you have Kroger's card, you need to be you need to make it a habit for the next week or two. Go to the butcher shop and watch the clearance, watch the sales for the next 2 weeks. Because I've been picking up ribeye steaks and like chuck roasts and briskets and skirt steaks for less than half price every day for the last 4 or 5 days. It's kind of a daily deal. I don't know how they're doing it right now, but it's like one time I went and picked up a 3-pack of bone-in ribeyes. It was like $40. Last week I picked up the exact same pack, $17. Same size, same thickness, same brand, same everything. If you want to save some money, and you have a chest freezer, stock it right now because beef prices are going to go through the roof, especially with grain prices taking such a hit.
Yep.
Because what do cows eat?
Wheat.
Right.
Tell you what, it's not pussy.
Now, here you mentioned that, Sean. I wonder how much people get paid an hour in a butcher shop or a slaughterhouse.
It's hard for me to say. I grew up with two brothers whose father was a butcher at a Kroger grocery store for like 30 years. He was paid pretty well. I mean, like the truck he drove was nice. The kids never were wanting for anything, and both their colleges were paid for, so they got paid well. As of today, I couldn't tell you.
It's just I can't deal with the screams and the moans and wails of the animals, though. Oh my god!
Well, okay, so
Could you put yourself in their shoes doing that daily?
well, it depends. If you're a grocery store butcher, you don't have to dispatch the animal. If
No,
you're
but a slaughterhouse is another story.
If you are Jaime, who's a regular panelist here, he had a 450-pound boar boar at his ranch this weekend. He named it Putin, and
then
Friday
slaughtered it.
Friday afternoon before we did the show, he walked outside and he had put a bullet right between the eyes of Putin, and he spent all weekend carving that thing up, and he's sending me some meat. So he does it all, man, from seed to slaughter. Like he brings a baby pig and he slaughters a 450-pound boar, and he named it Putin, and he put a bullet right through him. And he sent me a picture, and I'd show it to you on YouTube right now, with its dull, crossed eyes and his head removed. But I'd probably get cancel cultured to death with 3 instant strikes, so I can't do that with a Y.
No, not with a Y. Only I'm allowed to use the Y.
No, please send me some boar bacon, please.
Yeah. Well, actually, that he is sending me some belly cut, because it's like skin and then like bacon style meat, right? And Koreans eat the shit out of that, so you can cut it thin and salt it and cure it and make bacon, or you can do it the way I do it and cut it like into strips that are 4 inches thick, and then you cut the 4-inch thick things into like 1/4-inch thick slices, and then you cook it with fucking soy sauce and onions and garlic and a couple other things. It's super good. So I don't know, maybe I could be bothered one day to add cooking to my channel too, but right now it's a pretty full stack. Anyway, I've tangented enough. Let's move on. Next story came at 2:16 a.m. Central Time, which is 9:15 a.m. Ukrainian time. And I have a picture for you here. Is that it? No. It's this one. Don't worry, I'll translate this for you. Okay, Chernihiv region of northern Ukraine issues curfew as Russian war enters the 26th day. The translation of what you're seeing there on your screen is from today, a curfew in Chernihiv region will last from 8 p.m. to 6 a.m. I did the military time convert, sorry. At this time, it is forbidden to leave the shelter of your own housing if you do not have a special pass. That's what the top line says. The bottom one just says, this is the war that ended the 26th day, and officials basically saying, we need to lock it down for a little while for your own safety. That was actually very easy Cyrillic for me to read. Alright, so, the next thing I have for you is, let's see. It's about 2 hours later. It's about quarter after 11. And I have this photo for you. Bing! Yes, I did give you a before and after. This is a photo of an overnight missile strike that completely destroyed Kyiv's Retroville Mall. 8 people were killed, like overnight crew, I guess, like custodial people. Russia claims that this mall had Ukrainian missiles hidden inside. Right. Now, I put these 2 arrows here to illustrate a point to you. If you look at scale, you will notice that the picture on the left, that building, is much bigger than the one in the back. Because that was the backmost part of the building. Everything in front of it, which is in the picture on the left, was completely destroyed. There's nothing left. They leveled the entire mall. The only thing that survived is the frame structure of that piece with the arrow at the very back of that building, and then the building next door to it, which you can also see in both photos. Any of you know anything about the Houston area? The largest mall in Houston is called, well, it's one of the more famous ones. It's called the Galleria. It's in uptown Houston. It's massive. It takes up 2 city blocks. Retroville Mall takes up about 3 city blocks. It was completely destroyed. There's nothing left. I mean, look for yourself. There it is. It's all gone. Wiped out overnight. Doesn't exist anymore. There's no fixing that. They're just going to have to demo whatever's left of it and start over. That was a missile attack. What do the Ukrainians keep asking for? Oh, that's right, air cover to stop. Oh yeah, that's right, missile attacks. Now you can start to see why they keep asking for it. Now you can start to look at these idiots at the Pentagon going, that doesn't give them any tactical advantage. There's no benefit to that. Really? Because that building says otherwise.
Buildings, as in many.
Yeah, that was one giant complex of buildings. That was in
Well,
Kyiv.
I was going to point out the fact that if the Russians were right, we would have seen secondary explosions now, wouldn't we have?
Oh, there would be nothing left of all the buildings around that building.
I feel like what they needed was anti-air defenses, not planes in the sky. 'Cause, I mean, what are planes
in
going
the
to do
sky
against
are the
a
best
fucking
anti-aircraft defense.
Planes in the sky over the
No,
area,
I'm saying if they
over
weren't
the target,
aircraft,
is much more reactionary.
if there were some kind of rockets.
See, that's the thing that pisses me off the most. The Pentagon says that adding Polish MiG-29s to the Ukrainian air fleet is escalatory. Okay? If the Polish MiGs were donated to the Ukrainians, it increases their air power by 33% because the Ukrainians only have about 59 MiGs. The Polish was going to give them another 28. That's a 33% increase in combat effectiveness. Even if you didn't have the pilots to man those extra planes, you can take 1/3 of your current fleet off the flight line and do some very much needed maintenance. These planes are flying 20 sorties a day. Those engines are getting wore out. Those pilots are getting wore out. At least give the pilots a fresh plane. They can't do that right now because they're all hands on deck. Adding another 28 or 29 planes would have at least given them a little bit of a breather mechanically. But it's escalatory. Shut the fuck up. It's an offensive weapon. The Ukrainians are not on the offense, are they? They're defending their home. Every single fucking piece of military equipment is a defensive tool when you're defending your home. I won't hear a fucking thing otherwise. General Jack Keane will not hear a fucking thing otherwise. Almost every general being interviewed right now will not hear a fucking thing otherwise. If you're using a weapon defending your territory, that's a defensive tool. Fuck you, Jen Psaki. Fuck you, people at the Pentagon. Fuck you. Bullshit. Give them the fucking planes. You eggheads in that fucking building, 4,000 miles away? You don't know shit compared to the guy that's on the ground getting bombed. That person who's asking you for things, he knows way more intimately what he needs than you do. Don't give me fucking talk about escalation, ever. Not when that motherfucker has 4 nations worth of armies bearing down on one nation defending their shit. Rant over. Anyway, let's move on. Alright, so this is the new curfew thing. That's, I think, what I posted earlier. Okay, I'll address that. Let me address that first. HVS says it's not about the pilots, or it's all about the pilots, not the plane. I would argue it's both. But I understand what you're saying, too. Fatigue is a killer. But if you have 59 planes in your inventory, I think it stands to reason in a country of 40 million citizens, you have more than 59 pilots. So that's why I was saying if you add another 28 planes from Poland into that mix, you can put another 28 planes into the 20 sorties a day with all your fresh pilots that are sitting in barracks on rotation. There's no way that they only have enough pilots for just the number of planes they've got. There's no way. That's not sensible at all. Like, it's not like Top Gun. You don't have your name painted on the side of your plane, your personal plane in Ukraine. There's just no way. They don't have enough of them. So I suspect the planes are running the 20 sorties a day, but they're probably rotating the pilots at least 3 times per plane per day. It's only fair, right? You don't want to burn them out. Anyway, this story came 2 hours later. It's 1:28 p.m. Ukrainian time, and the United Kingdom's... Is it United Kingdom's? Well, this was released by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Ukraine, but the story itself says the United Kingdom's Ministry of Defense said Monday that heavy fighting continues north of Kyiv as the bulk of Russian forces remain more than 15 miles from the center of the city. Development comes as Ukraine Ministry of Foreign Affairs reported heavy damage in Kyiv from a recent airstrike. Okay, that's what that is. That's basically just a confirmation of the mall getting destroyed. According to the Prosecutor General's Office of Ukraine, 8 people died and large-scale destruction was caused. Yeah, it wiped out 3 city blocks. I'd say that's pretty large-scale destruction. Russia continues to attack civilians. Kyiv's mayor also imposed a 35-hour curfew in the city, set to begin tonight and run through Wednesday morning. For those of you who don't know, the mayor of Kyiv is former world heavyweight boxing champion Vitaly Klitschko. You don't fuck with that guy. He's 6'6" and 250 pounds. But he runs the city. If he says that you need to be locked down for your own safety, he's probably right. His brother, let's see, it's Vitaly and who's the other one? They both have V names. Sorry, my mind just went blank. Anyway, the other brother, Vladimir Klitschko, was once married to actress Hayden Panettiere. He is also about 6'6" and about 250 pounds. He's carrying an RPD one-handed, and he's fighting in the streets with the rest of his people. Like, the dude's not a bitch. Anyway, listening to them do their interviews, it's actually pretty strange, because their English is good enough, and what they're saying isn't what the media is saying. Like, they see it every day. They're fighting street to street to street. They've even talked about, like, they had a. Now, I'm not taking away from their capabilities. There was like a tennis star that came back to the country, and I think he was wounded. Then there was a Winter Olympics biathlete that competed in Beijing. He came back to fight for his country. He died. Like, these people are coming back. They're doing their duty. This is like what's a good example of this? Fuck, what was his name? I'm forgetting. Clark Gable was once, I think, a tail gunner in a B-17. That was like him going back and serving his country when his country needed him, right? Van Johnson, same story. Um, Jimmy Stewart, same thing, right? Like, these people were entertainers and athletes. This is like Pat Tillman, right? Gave up his NFL career to serve his country and died for it, right? These are their people, their stars, their heroes, their role models. They're going back and they're dying for this. It's just we don't really give it the attention it deserves because, well, they're not one of us. They're Ukrainians, but they are one of us because you just have to draw the parallels. You have to draw the line saying, well, that's just like Pat Tillman. That's just like Clark Gable. That's just like Van Johnson. That's just like Jimmy Stewart. That's just like Audie Murphy. Then it becomes more real to you. Moving on. We're going to get through this pretty quickly, I can tell. I keep saying that, but we're already an hour in. Sorry. Let's see. Next story comes to me around the same time of day. It's 1:29-ish, so it's still post-lunch in Ukraine. Ukraine's prosecutor general claimed Monday that a Russian shell has hit a chemical plant in Sumy, causing a leak in a 50-ton tank of ammonia that took hours to contain. Sumy Regional Governor Dmytro, oh boy, it's Dmytro Zivitsky. No, Zivitsky. Sorry, I put this Cyrillic twice. Dmytro Zivitsky said the leak spread 1.5 miles in all directions from the Sumy Kimprom plant, according to the Associated Press. The plant is on the eastern outskirts of the city, which has a population of 263,000 and has been regularly shelled by Russian troops in recent weeks. Now remember, in the beginning of this conflict, they started trying to take out infrastructure. As that didn't start to really bear fruit, they began attacking civilian targets. PSYOP war. Try to break the will of the people. Knocking out a 50-ton tank of ammonia. What do we know ammonia is good for?
Turning to the gas.
Well, ammonium nitrate, explosives, munitions. They knocked out this tank. Ammonia leaked 1.5 miles in all directions. It's very caustic. It's very volatile. Probably not very fun to clean up. So they are still attacking infrastructure when they can, as targets of opportunity. Pretty gross, though. They're still dealing with this. Okay, let's see, we're about 2 hours later, and now it's about 3:42 in Ukraine, and Russia's military is claiming Monday that it has killed 80 foreign, now this is the part that really gets to me, it has killed 80 foreign and Ukrainian troops after striking a training facility in the Rivne region in northwest Ukraine. High-precision air-launched cruise missiles have struck a training center for foreign mercenaries and Ukrainian nationalist formations, Defense Attorney spokesman Igor Konashenkov said. Konashenkov claimed that 80 foreign and Ukrainian troops were killed in the attack. A local Ukrainian military official confirmed twin Russian missile strikes on a training center in the Rivne region, but did not provide any of the details on the casualties. Which means the Russians gave you a figure of 80, the Ukrainians give you a figure of 0. Somewhere in the middle is truth. Either way, people are volunteering to help defend Ukraine. There were several stories that we talked about a week or two ago. Volunteers of the United States, New Jersey, New York, whatever. You go to your Ukrainian embassy, you say you want to volunteer, and they'll have you on a plane in a couple of days. You can go there. They probably sent you to a camp just like this one to train you in like basic communications and structure of their military order. So that way you don't just run out there blind and stupid, right? And they probably have certain codes they want to teach you, certain radio signals. Because even though you're not regular military, they have to teach you something to get a hold of you. Otherwise, you're just like, what do I do? Anyway, that place got hit. And according to the Russians, 80 people died. Some of them being foreign. Some of them being volunteers. Guess we'll know in a couple of days. Alright, so, at the same time, I have a story for you that I'm going to show you because this is a video. So for you guys in the panel, go ahead and mute yourselves. Jump on the YouTube side if you want to see this. And as I introduce this, you have about 30 seconds. So go ahead and get started. Load it up on YouTube. Go ahead and hit the play button. And I'll sort of set the table for you. Videos have emerged showing Russian troops in the southern Ukrainian city of Kherson. Kherson is west of Crimea. It is a stepping stone on the way to Odessa, which is what the Russian military is pushing to try to capture because it's the last naval port that the Ukrainian military and country have left. There's probably a bunch of little tiny ones, but that's the last major one. A loud explosion, so the Russian troops emerged in the southern city of Kherson, opening fire and throwing grenades at the protesters. A loud explosion and the sounds of gunfire can be heard in the clip I'm about to show you, with one showing locals tending to a person lying on the ground in pools of blood. Now, I didn't give you that video because I don't want to get banned, but I will show you a video right now about that was taken live at this event, and what he's saying in Ukrainian and what the crowd is saying, they're repeating, they're chanting is "Go home, go home, go home." Now, it's a short video, but just kind of to give you an idea of what the hell's going on. You should probably pay attention to this. Go home, go home. Grenades. Machine guns. Civilian crowd. I heard that. Obviously, he's just running for his life at this point. Anyway, I just wanted to share that with you just to kind of give you an idea of how real it gets. These guys were just protesting, you know. They were like, hey, go home. You're not supposed to be here. And the response was swift and decisive. Grenades and machine guns, and it eventually led to dead people. Now, I don't have the official body count or the casualty list. I'm sure I'll have that by tomorrow. So just keep this in your back pocket as what the hell is going on.
This is exactly like the same shit I saw a couple months ago in Kazakhstan.
Yeah?
This is what Russians do.
Russians doing
They're pieces
Russian
of
things.
shit.
This is what you get when you don't have a Second Amendment to protect your First Amendment rights. let alone
You don't
when an
think
invading army is there.
You
Yeah,
don't
that's
think for a second that the
perfect
Russians
example.
wouldn't have opened fire either way?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. That's what they do. They bombed a mall. They destroyed a maternity hospital.
They shut up a freaking school.
They shot up a school this
They've been
morning.
doing a lot of that.
Yeah.
This is a
This is
perfect
this is the
example
kind
of
of war that they wage.
don't protest in a war zone.
Well, yes. That
And
is
this is
true.
this is exactly the same as Tiananmen Square. It's no different.
It's worse. More people
Yeah.
involved. It's just the thing is we will be able to cope with what we see a whole lot sooner if we stop trying to put Western ideology and standards on barbaric Slav garbage from Russia. That's what we got to do, okay? We are trying to hold these people to a standard that we live that they don't. That's the problem, okay? Now I'm not saying that all Russians are like this, but the puppets in the military being led by this little sawed-off, bald-headed fucking asshole, they are. And that's why I'm so insistent when I talk about this. If the Russians are sent packing back to Russia, this war's only half over. You see, somebody still has to go in there and grab that little cocksucker by the neck and throw a rope around him and hang him. He
What they
can't
need
be
is
he can't be allowed to live through this after what he's done. If he walked
needs-
into Ukraine with all his tanks and all his
Mhm.
military and surrounded every major city and didn't fire a single shot, and he said, "Don't make me do this," and then they call his bluff and he turns around and he leaves, okay, he can be allowed to live through that. You can sanction him for like 10 years as a penalty for even crossing over. We're way, way beyond that now. There are way too many people that died. There are way too many cities that have been completely wiped off the map. Okay? This is unforgivable. You can kick him out of the country, but you still have to go in and get that fucker. Which means somebody is going to have to cross that border and go into Russia and march into Moscow and drag his ass out. And
they
justice
need a
has to
coup
be done.
d'etat.
Right, that's the thing. NATO doesn't have the stomach, the heart, or the balls to go into Russia. Guaranteed.
Not.
They will
How
never
about
do it.
Belarus? How about the Belarusian people as well as the Ukrainian and Russian military doing it?
The Belarus people are like the Georgian people right now. There's a 50-50 split. The problem is those in power are pro-Russia. The rest of the people are anti-Russia. The same thing happened
Well-
in Georgia. The same thing's going on in Belarus. I showed you that picture of that woman who's part of the opposition who's trying to overthrow. Oh, what was that guy's name? I said it yesterday. Lukashenko? Yeah.
Mhm.
She's trying to get rid of him. But until while he's there, they can't do it. While
But
Putin is there in Moscow, and while the people of Russia have no guns, a lot of them are going to die to try to go get him.
Well, I question the Russian army for what they're doing. Like, really, question your oath what you're actually doing.
Yes, and the problem is you've got conscripts in academy and young impressionable people who come from poor towns all over the continent of Asia, who think, hey, what a cush gig! It's 3 hots and a cot, and all I have to do is wear this uniform, right?
And hold its rifle.
90% of those people are thinking that. 10% of those people think they're the next fucking Adolf Hitler, working for the man until they can be the man, right? There are a couple of diehards in Russia. Let's not deny that. Every nation has radicals. There's no denying it. It's just the problem is can they overthrow the status quo?
Here's the problem.
How many have to
what's
die
that?
before they succeed?
No, Scott actually pointed this out. It said that it's not the FSB. It's the other one. It's Sobel. Is it Sobel?
So you have FSB
got
is the
Sobel.
new KGB.
Right. You got Sobel.
Oman is the SWAT team of the military police, and sober is like the SWAT team of the SWAT team of military police. They're the QRF version.
So
When-
I'm just thinking that you have more military than those two groups, don't you?
Yes, but all three answer to Putin directly. That's the problem.
So what happens if you have the whole entire army just go rogue against the government?
Then you have a chance. That you would have a chance.
So I'd ask the Russian army, are you really willing to keep doing this? Or are you going to go after the guys that are giving you orders?
That's the propaganda and psyops that are going on right now. You know, like Zelensky's putting out videos appealing to the Russian infantry, saying, "You were tricked into coming here. We have captured your sons and your children who serve that dictator, and they have said as much. And if you don't agree with this mission, stand down, surrender to the Ukrainian military. We will treat you fairly, and we will send you home when we can." Like, he's taken the humanitarian diplomatic approach. Is it working? No, not really. Because look how many attacks are still happening. There's too many faithfuls, there's too many loyals. Either that or there's too much infantry scared of being executed for treason.
Let's face it, Russia has a habit of executing
They
traitors.
sure the fuck do, don't they?
To do yourself a favor.
They also have a habit of sticking machine guns in the back of the lines in case they come back.
Yes, they do. Maxims. They started with Maxims. Now they're using Dushkas. But yeah,
Enemy
you're
at the
right.
gates reference.
That's part of it. Yeah, that is part of it. It was covered even in the original Call of Duty 1. Like, you can ham it up, but all the stories that we grew up playing video games and watching movies of, it's loosely based on some form of history that was factual. Otherwise, they wouldn't have just made this shit up. They hammed it up, sure. But there's no doubt history is a good teacher. There's no doubt that it didn't happen. Because they say Hitler's responsible for the death of 6 million Jews.
He killed more than just Jews.
Joseph Stalin killed more than 3 times as many of his own people, 20 million, just to keep the status quo in line. Who's worse?
Both.
He killed his own.
Yep.
Anyway, let's move on.
Yep.
Man, this is gonna run 2 hours. Fuck. Sorry. I really tried to make this more streamlined, but we've got a lot to comment, I guess, you know. It's good though, because the purpose was to get people to think. You, the panelists, are thinking. You, the guys in the audience, y'all are thinking. Y'all are saying this stuff. That's the whole point. If everyone just sits and watches it, nobody's going to have these opinions, dissenting or supporting. So it's like, we need to do this. Because if there's enough of us who dissent this shit worldwide, then the next step is, what do? Well, you pressure your local leaders, you volunteer, you do what you can do in the time you've got. So
now, is it wrong to actually tell the Russian people or the Russian army to actually tell them to stand down and to go after their leader?
No, because they have been doing that. They have.
And maybe it's time for a change, or this is going to be endless bloodshed.
An American, is he a senator? I think he's a senator. An American senator called for the death of Vladimir Putin.
Lindsey Graham.
Yeah, you people in Russia, ain't there one of you, one among you who could just take him out? Now, he caught some shit from the squad here, but nobody fucking cares about the squad. They're a bunch of radical morons. So, no. They tried to chastise and crucify Lindsey Graham for saying that. And yeah, okay, a couple of Republicans were like, well, he probably shouldn't have said that. But every motherfucker who said that probably thought, no, he was right. He just said the quiet part out loud. Except the squad, because they're idiots. Fuck them.
No, but for once, I think Lindsey Graham is right. This is nothing but continuous endless bloodshed for both nations.
Well, I hate to admit this, and Scott rode my ass about this a little bit. There are 2 people in the United States responsible for this war. 2, well, I can't say solely, But there are two names in the United States that may have prevented this. And one of them is Rand Paul, and the other one, unfortunately, is my Senator Ted Cruz. They have both vocally and vehemently denied Ukraine into NATO. And I don't like that. I like Ted Cruz. I do. I don't like this about Ted Cruz. This pissed me off apocalyptically. And there's nothing I can do about it. But I chewed his ass. I've met him. I met him the day after the primary that he lost. I met him and his wife. I've written him before. I've written him after. I've written him since. How much of this could have been avoidable? Let me put this into perspective. The Russian military began building their forces around the border of Ukraine 1 year ago this month. So you cannot tell me in good conscience we didn't know this was coming. Bullshit. NATO asked Ukraine 8 years ago, if you want to join us, show us a token of good faith. Disable your nuclear armament. Throw away your trump card. If anything happens to you, NATO will protect you. Ukraine said, okay, we'll do that. We will join you. We want to join you. We want you to accept us, and we don't want to leave anything in doubt. And they disarmed all their nuclear weapons. They have 0 in their arsenal. If they had kept 1, Russia would not have attacked. If NATO accepted them, let's say they didn't accept them until 2019, right? 5 years after they disarmed. This would have never happened. I'm confident in that. Russia wouldn't want to take on NATO.
No.
It's solely
NATO
on the
would
fault.
wipe the floor with them.
Right. It is solely at the hands and feet in this country from the two biggest proponents that stopped the acceptance of Ukraine into NATO. And I hate to admit one of them was one of my guys. I hate that. I'm sure there's more to it than that, but they're the two vocal ones. Rand Paul, a libertarian, right? An independent, right? An asshole, right? Ted Cruz, conservative, probably would have been better served as a Supreme Court justice instead of a senator. Also against it. Fuck him too. I hate to say it, but fuck him too. How many people died, and how many cities were destroyed, and how many... We're probably into the trillions now in terms of physical damage to the country and what it's going to cost to rebuild it. Lay at their hands and their feet. You can blame it on 2 people. 2. Because if they were for it, they would insist on it. They would twist arms in NATO and say, make this happen and prevent a war. Because whatever the United States says almost always goes with NATO. And because we said no, they say no. And now look where we're at. What gives those 2 people that much power in the world? What made them earn that much power? They're not even presidents of the United States. What gave them that unilateral power to destroy an entire nation? Now I'm being harsh, yes. But you could make that argument. What gives them that fucking right? Did anyone ever point that out to them? I did. I wrote Ted Cruz. I'm like, can you sleep at night knowing that you're responsible for the death of an entire nation? I'm like, you got to live with that. And I supported you. Like, I pushed for you. And this is how you thank the world. I was like, everyone's allowed one mistake, but good God, was yours huge. What's he going to do to redeem himself? He keeps screaming, send the MiGs. Okay, that's a good start. But you never would have had to if you didn't cock-block them out of NATO. Because he probably never thought this was ever going to happen. Because there was a bunch of people, including some people who frequent this server, who was like, they'll never attack. I had arguments with people on this server. I ran them off this server. I was like, they're never going to attack. Really? I'm like, you can live with that naivete. I was like, I live in reality. These fuckers were itching to do this. I was like, if you never saw that coming, I'd like to sell you some beachfront property in Colorado. Because Arizona's too obvious. Anyway, let's move on. I'm just tangenting to death. I'm sorry for that. This one was kind of fun. 10:49 a.m. Central Standard Time. I'm just getting into the groove at work because I have banker's hours. It's 5:49 p.m. in Moscow. A court in Moscow on Monday has labeled Meta. If you don't know what Meta is, that's the name that Mark Zuckerberg renamed Facebook and its parent companies. It has labeled Meta an extremist organization following Russia's ban on Facebook and Instagram. Good on you. The Tverskoy District Court upheld a lawsuit filed by Russian state prosecutors calling for a ban on Meta platforms on its soil, the news agency had added. The decision does not apply to the activities of Meta's messenger, WhatsApp, due to its lack of functionality for the public dissemination of information. Now, you want to keep WhatsApp up, and you want to watch it, and you want to scrutinize it to death, because that's how you're still getting intel. That's why you didn't want to ban all of it. Maybe that's your back door for all your little Russian hackers to find out everything else on their platforms. That's why you wanted to keep that little door open. You're not fooling anybody. I've been an IT guy for my whole life. I know that. Russia banned Facebook for restricting access to state media and targeted Instagram after Meta said that it would allow users in Ukraine to post messages urging violence against Russian President Vladimir Putin and his army. Funny. Didn't we have
Let me ask you this.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this. Do they still have VK still open?
I think oh, yeah, because those are franchised.
Those are Russian sites. It's basically their version of Facebook.
Yeah. Anyway, isn't it funny that these social media platforms who canceled, banned, chastised, ruined the lives and careers of so many people in this country, I'll just use one example, after January 6th, or for the last 5 or 6 years from the last administration, isn't it funny how they were so intolerant to all of that, but if it's in someone else's country, it's like, no, go ahead and talk shit about how you want to saw Putin's head off and shit down the opening when it used to be his neck. That's perfectly fine. That's acceptable.
Newsflash, it's illegal to protest, not to mention your First Amendment gets limited in that country.
Well, either way.
You don't have a First Amendment in that country.
Either way, I mean, the fact of the matter is Zuckerberg has moved the goalpost to whatever's convenient for him. Funny, isn't the guy married to a Chi-Com?
Yes, he is. And he also bought up all the surrounding houses in his neighborhood, so nobody lives near him.
What a pathetic and lonely existence for a guy who always looks like a sickly little boy. I'd love to see Zuckerberg stuck in an octagon with Dana White. Like, that dude would break him.
He wouldn't even have to touch him.
Or
Zuckerberg
is it
would wet
Dana
himself.
White? No. I'm not. No, sorry. I don't think it's Dana White that I'm thinking of.
Oh, throw him in there with Rogan.
That's who I was thinking of. That's exactly what I was thinking of. Throw Mark Zuckerberg into the octagon with Joe Rogan for like 5 minutes.
Rogan's pretty freaking legit.
Dude's gonna break him in half. Anyway, he's probably going to ride him around like a horse, too. All right, let's move on. 10:50 a.m. So it's now about the same time, 5:50 in Ukraine. And this is a eulogy, actually. And I know you're not going to know who this is, but I'm just going to tell you the backstory. And here's a photo of him. And it says, Germany's Buchenwald concentration camp memorial said Friday that Boris Romanchenko, a Holocaust survivor who was 96 years old, has been killed in the Ukrainian city of Kharkiv. Boris Romanchenko, I didn't put the caption here, but I translated it. Boris Romanchenko survived the concentration camps of Buchenwald, Peenemünde, Dora, and Bergen-Belsen. Those are like 4 of the worst concentration camps in history. And yet he was killed by a stray bullet that hit his house in Kharkiv, Ukraine. He was 96 years old. You survived.
What a bad timing.
You survived 4 of the worst, atrocious death camps in human history, and you were killed by a stray bullet while in your own apartment or house. How fucked is that? 96 years old. Anyway.
96 years old.
Mm-hmm. I mean, people are going to be like, well, he had a good run. But still, it's like...
Come on.
That's like Christopher Lambert became the last remaining Highlander, and all of a sudden he trips and falls face first onto a stair and breaks his neck and dies. It's like, what the fuck? Anyway. Or actually, if you want to hear a really good analogy, watch the movie... was it Wanted? No. Oh shit, I forgot the name of it now. It's Tom Hardy and what's his name? Shia LaBeouf.
Shia LaBeouf?
Yeah. And it was about prohibition. Lawless. Watch Lawless. Watch the immortal character played by Tom Hardy. And then at the very end of the epilogue, hear about how he died, and he just like, wait, what? I mean, the guy survived a world war. He survived getting his throat slit open and almost bleeding out. And he survives all of it in a gang war and against like one of the G-men basically, and murders him. And then the way he dies at the end of the movie is hilarious. It's tragic and it's hilarious. You're just like, you survived all that shit and died like this? That's the same thing with
pneumonia.
This guy. Yeah. You're not supposed to spoil it for those who haven't watched the movie. He was doing like some stupid little dance when no one was looking, and he fell into a frozen lake. And then crawled out, got pneumonia, and died. It's just like, what? Funny. Ironic. The whole movie's hyperbole, though, let's be honest. I thought it was really good.
No, there's also other cases of people like the airline stewardess that got ripped out of a plane and fell like 25,000 feet and survived.
That was a bomber pilot, World War II. He fell through the roof of a
it's happened several times.
Well, the one I'm thinking of was bomber pilot shot out of the ball turret from flak, landed or fell 20,000 feet, crashed through the roof of a Parisian train station roof and survived. Another one was a B-24 pilot who got shot out from flak, fell like 20 or 30,000 feet, landed on his side in a muddy field. I mean, broke damn near every bone in his body, but he survived. And it's just like, I don't know.
Well, there's also the airline stewardess who got ripped out. And the plane basically came apart in the air.
Is that the one from Hawaii and the whole top came off of it?
No, this was in Europe.
Okay.
She fell like 25,000 feet, still strapped to her chair, and survived.
The chair saved her life.
There's also, a couple cases, I think, in South America where it's happened too. Which is fucking crazy that you can fall that far and...
Well, because there's terminal velocity. The human body will only fall at a rate of like 160 miles an hour. Like eventually your body weight against wind resistance, you slow down. Like you can only reach a certain speed. But it's still kind of crazy. I mean, I'll give you that.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's like, wait,
Bro,
wow, what?
most motorcycle crashes at 160 miles an hour, you ain't surviving.
No. No, you're an organ donor. Matter of fact, my friend actually, his motorcycle helmet, on the back of the helmet, it has his blood type and organ donor status on it. He did it as a joke, but it's like, you know, some people look at that and
Not
go, "You're
far off.
crazy." Yeah, it's not far off. Exactly. All right, 6:52 p.m. Ukrainian time. So we're getting down to the dusk hours now, and I have a picture of Chernobyl yet again. Yeah. Ukraine's nuclear regulatory agency said Monday that the radiation monitors around the Chernobyl power plant no longer work. In a statement Monday, the agency also said that there are no longer firefighters available in the region to protect forests tainted by decades of radioactivity as the weather begins to warm up. I'm sorry. When did Ukraine's forests turn into California's wildfires every year? The plant was seized by Russia's military on February 24th. The combination of risks could mean a significant deterioration of the ability to control the spread of radiation, not just in Ukraine, but beyond the country's borders in weeks and months to come. By design.
Here's a big question. How is the UN as well as NATO preparing for the radiation spreading?
They don't. The IAEA does. International Atomic Energy Agency. They're the ones who watch this one. This is out of NATO's hands. What they have confirmed as of yesterday was they cycled out over half the staff at Chernobyl, finally, that have been stuck on the job for 27 days without going home. So they finally cycled out the near dead bodies for fresh bodies that are about to become near dead bodies, because no one said how long those guys are going to be stuck in. But they're finally rotating them.
So we're talking
duress.
liquidators?
What's that?
Are we talking like liquidators?
They're exchanging hostages is basically what they're doing.
Well, they're exchanging hostages that can keep the place from melting down, yes. They're nuke techs, basically, at the Chernobyl plant. But, yeah, they finally got out yesterday. Now the new guys are going to go in there. I want to see pictures of the guys who came out. I want to see what they looked like before they went to work, and I want to see what they looked like when they finally got out. I want to see pictures of the guys who went in yesterday, and I want to see what those guys look like when they come out. Like, it could be the ultimate diet, as far as we know. Like, it'll be keto. It'll blow keto to the ground. Anyway, let's move on. Why did I call this wood chipper? Here's a picture of what I wanted to stick in the wood chipper. Doesn't he just look like a fat-cheeked little infant in that photo? It's like, I dressed up my 6-month-old in a suit. Yeah. 7:52 p.m., so it's dusk. It's officially nighttime. Russian President Vladimir Putin's campaign in Ukraine is stalled. U.S. Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin declared on Sunday, categorizing Moscow's strategy as, quote, feeding their own troops into a wood chipper. That's why I'm sharing you this story. Those of you who know me, you know that's my, like, who did I say was my spirit animal? Oh yeah, John C. Woods is my spirit animal, and the wood chipper is obviously my implement of war. Their maneuver forces on the ground are essentially stalled, Austin said Sunday during an appearance on Face the Nation. It's the effect of him moving his forces into a wood chipper. You know, the Ukrainians have continued to attrit his forces, and they've been very effective using the equipment that we provided them. You know, and armor weapons, and aircraft systems. Like, that doesn't make any sense. Austin, the guy doesn't make much sense when he talks in public. Like when he said that those hypersonic missiles weren't a game changer. What an idiot. Just shut him up. Austin, who recently returned from a trip to Bulgaria and Slovakia, said Putin has not been able to achieve his goals as he rapidly anticipated. So he's resorted to targeting cities, towns, and civilians more heavily. Yeah, I'd say that's kind of the signal of a desperate person. Oh, if I can't have it, then no one will. Alright, so moving on around the same time, and I've got this photo for you. Really? Is that guy better than Bibi Netanyahu? Anyway, a senior Israeli official has confirmed that Israeli Prime Minister Naftali Bennett, who has become a mediator in the war in Ukraine, accepted an invite to travel to Kyiv. Funny. He'll go to Kyiv, but Biden won't. The report said Bennett would only head to the Ukrainian capital if talks are taken seriously, and that his presence has been requested by the Ukrainian government numerous times over the past 10 days. Bennett's office reportedly has instructed Israeli security services to draft plans for him to visit Kyiv on short notice. Man, big, meaty ones. I will go into a war-torn country, into their capital, to meet with their president at his request. Me being the prime minister of my country. That's a statement. Like, imagine if Biden went to Kyiv. Met with Zelenskyy, shook hands with him on live TV, broke bread with him even, right? If anything, think of the morale boost that the Ukrainian soldier would have seeing that optic. Oh, we're saved. The Americans are finally here. Right? They've been holding out for 26 days. Anything and everything they can just to give them a little more hope that what they're doing isn't a waste of time, you do it. Now, obviously, national security and what if the president gets killed and yada yada yada, right? Sure, I get it. But that also just goes to show how desperate this war has become. Why people are very quietly mumbling World War III. Now, remember, each world war started with a small flyover country. I've said this before. Having something happen to an official that wasn't that big, and everyone chose sides, and a world war kicked off, right? How thick do you think the security detail is going to be for Prime Minister Naftali Bennett of Israel? It's going to be huge. Anyway, good evening to Gunpowder Beauty, who finally came in, said hi. Hello, Mother. How's the baby? You can go ahead and leave that in the chat, too. Because I know that you posted pictures of your husband, and he looked happy but tired. What the fuck? Get out. Jesus Christ. Hang on. Man, it's like a goddamn ninja. Anyway. She's like a freaking dirty Russian. Snuck up on me. Anyway. Where did I leave off? Ah, okay. 8:54, an hour later. President Volodymyr Zelenskyy has combined all Ukrainian television stations into one platform to combat misinformation by the aggressor state, distortion of information, as well as justifying or denying information about Russia's ongoing invasion. The Ukrainian government announced that for the sake of national security and the defense of Ukraine, they announced that. I didn't read that right. It would implement a single information policy. National Security and Defense Council Secretary Alexei Danilov said in a translated statement. One channel. There was a time where Jeremy Clarkson of Top Gear once made fun of the Soviet Union because there was only 2 channels. One was state TV. The second one was a reminder to turn back to channel 1, state TV. Anyway, that's what I just found that kind of funny. But Zelensky's doing it because he wants everyone to say the same thing. It's sort of like when the president of the United States goes on live TV, spread the message. Yeah. Okay, so that's that. Moving on. I'm out of pictures, by the way, so these should go pretty quickly. And it's now 5:56 my time when I got home from work, and it is 12:56 a.m. Tuesday in Moscow. So we're already touching day 27. Hang on a sec. All right. It is not his spies. It's not that his spies are necessarily incompetent. Vladimir Putin apparently just thinks they are. That was the headline. 2 members of the FSB, the successor agency to the KGB, who were supposed to have prepped the groundwork for the Russian invasion of Ukraine, have been placed under house arrest. Colonel General Sergei Beseda and his deputy apparently dropped the ball, or are being blamed for an operation that by most accounts is bogged down. Questions are likely being asked, why didn't Ukrainians welcome Russian soldiers? Where did the money earmarked for that operation go? Was it unwisely spent or stolen by those in charge of it? There were no crowds greeting the invading force with flowers, as some in Russia had anticipated. It never happened, as we know. And so it's also about misusing the funds spent on probably imaginary networks of agents. Andrei Soldatov of the Center for European Policy Analysis put out this statement. Soldatov is an expert on Russian security services and explains those under arrest are from the 5th Service of the FSB. They represent the most sensitive department of the FSB, which is in charge of espionage in the Ukraine. And now it looks like Vladimir Putin finally understands that the intelligence he was given before the invasion was extremely inaccurate. And so he has started looking around, trying to find someone else to blame. Now, we talked about this slightly in the beginning. He's surrounded by yes men. And those yes men are terrified of him. And they don't want to tell him something he doesn't want to hear. So obviously when he finds out that everything he's been told is a lie, now he's going to start putting boots to ass. He's going to start disappearing his own people. So that whole theory of when are the Russians going to throw a coup gets a little bit closer to, so when is it going to happen? Because now you're starting to see that this really was a dying man's last wish. This whole conflict had nothing to do with the majority of the Russian people or the military.
No, this was entirely Putin.
This is entirely Putin and his mad idea of bringing the world back to 1961. Or 2 or 3, depending on if you believe John F. Kennedy or anybody before or after him. So yeah, I mean it's his show. And yet he's got an entire nation of his own people too scared to stop him. Versus an entire world who's afraid to stop him. He has unilateral power over an entire world of 7 billion people. One sawed-off, bald little runt who's probably going to be dead in a couple years anyway. Technically, in the game of life, he has already won. He has become public enemy number 1. He has surpassed Adolf Hitler. He has surpassed Joseph Stalin by sheer numbers, because there's more people on Earth now who hate him. Just a thought. My final story for you tonight came at 6:12 Central Time, which is 7:12 Eastern Time, Washington, D.C. President Biden attempted to dispel the belief that Ukraine is fighting Russia without sophisticated equipment, arguing that they have what they need to effectively fight this invasion. The idea that they don't have enough sophisticated equipment is just simply not accurate. Biden said this during remarks at the Business Roundtable Quarterly meeting today. They have every piece of equipment that makes rational sense based on our military and NATO's military for them to be able to do what they're doing. They're wreaking havoc on they're wreaking havoc on the Russian military, whether it's their tanks or their helicopters or their aircraft, which you see in the scroller. They are laying waste. Sure. Biden's comment comes as many have continued for the U.S. to allow, as many have insisted that the U.S. continue to try to allow for the transfer of MiG fighter jets from Poland to the Ukraine, a move the administration has not backed down from, arguing it's too risky to be perceived as escalatory by the Russians. I recently learned today that the White House press corps is given something called a blue card. Maybe you've heard of this before, but if not, brace yourselves because you're about to learn something. Have you ever noticed that sometimes in the mainstream media, you will hear all the different outlets parrot the exact same catchphrase words when telling a certain story? Here's an example. Hunter Biden's laptop, easily dismissed for months as, quote, Russian disinformation. Remember that phrase? It's the same type of principle, right? The media have been given a blue card for weeks at the White House press corps. And what they keep saying is the transfer of MiG fighter jets by the U.S. from Poland to Ukraine is too risky because it's perceived as escalatory, and that MiG fighter jets are an offensive weapon. Whereas javelins, stingers, Dishkas, sling blade UAVs, RPG-7s, AK-47s, 1 million rounds of donated ammunition from Ammo Inc., 200,000 Kel-Tec weapons transferred and donated to Ukraine. All those are not escalatory. They're not offensive weapons. What utter bullshit, right? Remember this. Remember the phrase from General Jack Keane. Any weapon used in theater, in your own country, in defense of an invading army is a defensive weapon. Period. End of story. Not going to listen to the argument. Until they cross the border into Russia and take boots to ass to Moscow, Every single thing that they use is a defensive weapon. And with that, I'm going to play this. Because I did run out of stories, and I did get to keep it under 2 hours. So, that being said, I want to thank you all, my panel, and all you, my audience, for watching today. If you're new to my channel, welcome. And if you're a regular here, welcome back. Either way, check out my other playlist and see if my other interests might be of interest to you. This is all I've got for you today. I'm sure I'll have more for you tomorrow. This was the War Room. This was day 26, and it did not disappoint. Tomorrow will be day 27, and we will bring you the news in the timeline as accurately as I can, and try not to rant too hard about it. Thank you all for watching. Slava Ukraini, and we'll see you tomorrow.